covering the topic for today. Our session is titled GradGuard and Star Res 1 Million Financial Literacy Opportunities and Counting. And today we're going to be exploring how GradGuard's insurance programs support the financial literacy goals of hundreds of institutions, resulting in 1 million students who use the StarRes platform and now have the opportunity to learn about their school's liability policy and protect themselves from losses while living on campus. We're excited to have a fantastic panel with us representing a range of experiences and perspectives. So with us today, we have Alberto from GradGuard, we have Mo from University of Miami, and Kim from University of Colorado in Boulder. Each of our panelists bring really unique insights to today's discussion, and I will hand it over to Alberto to kick things off and let our panelists introduce themselves a little bit more.
Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Weimer Alberto. I'm the Vice President of Industry Relations here at GradGuard. Just a little bit about me. I've been with the GradGuard team for 8 years now, and I've lived a couple of different lives. First, I started working with our school success function, which is basically the day-to-day partnerships that we have with our schools after they decide that they want to partner with us. That's where I had the opportunity to work with Mo and with Kim. And then I've had a couple different roles here, overseeing that team, eventually the portfolio. My role now is really thinking through what is our relationship to the industry of higher education? How do we want to be embedded in that space? How do we think through integrating research into the fabric of our company? What is the story that we want to tell? And how do we work with nonprofit organizations and other entities that are aligned with that mission in order to achieve that? My role, I think, gives me a really great opportunity to interact with people that are doing really great work and to participate in initiatives like this. So, prior to that, though, I actually am from the Northeast. I come from the residence life and housing world, like a lot of folks that are in this space. Started off as an RA at Binghamton University, then went to being a hall director at Utica University, went back to Binghamton, worked another 4 years in residence life while I was doing my master's in student affairs. Then had an opportunity to switch over to the housing operations world, where I worked at Arizona State University. And then I was the assistant director for guest and conference services. So a lot of my experience is through the lens of that higher ed experience, and really excited to share our story with you today. But I'll hand it over to Mo so that Mo can share a little bit about herself.
Hi everyone. How do I top that, Wimmer? So my name is Maura McKay Arimland. I live in sunny Davie, Florida. I am a business systems analyst at University of Miami here at the Student Affairs Informations Department, and I help improve the STARS housing application right here, and connecting the dots between technology and real life, our residential life, residents, the staff, and the parents, and all. So in about 18 days, actually, I will be 9 years as a STARS power user. How nice is that? You know? So
Great.
yeah, I have worked with Wimmer and some of his colleagues over the years, helping with GradGuard, bringing GradGuard to our students. Thank you.
Thanks. And Kim?
Hi, everybody. My name is Kimberly Foster. I'm an assistant director at the University of Colorado Boulder. I'm in my 21st year, I think, at CU. I started in residence life, and now I work in university housing, which is our administrative business side of housing here. So I do all of our communication, written, verbal, outward stuff. I do all the legal stuff, the dispute stuff, all the fun things. So I work really closely with GradGuard and brought GradGuard to CU several, I don't know how many years ago now, but many years ago. And we very excited to be here today to join you and hear the questions that you have.
Wonderful. Before we jump into today's content, I think it might be helpful to kind of ground us in what the goals of today are. I think the first one is really to share a little bit about some of the progress that we've been making in terms of supporting students through overcoming like these unexpected events that may happen. Share a little bit about the evolution of our company as well. Um, how we've been able to grow, how we've been able to evolve, how we've been able to listen to school partners in order to change how we're meeting those needs. But then also give you a glimpse as to how we're thinking about the future. Where are we investing our time? What are the kinds of questions that GradGuard's thinking as we think about the future, and what potentially could be your role in that as we try to explore that. So that's really what we're going to cover today. We'll run through some information here. But I think just to kind of ground us, might be helpful for us to share a little bit about GradGuard as an organization, what our mission is, and why we were founded to begin with. I get asked a lot whether or not I would ever like go back to higher ed and things like that, and I always give the same response. I don't know if people notice, but it's I always say that, I feel privileged to work at an organization that really understands higher ed. And I do believe that. I think a lot of that comes from our two co-founders, John and Bill, both of whom have deep connections to the higher ed world. Both um, had worked with colleges and universities before even founding the company. John, for example, was an associate director of alumni affairs, and through his family, they've always been invested in higher ed. And so having, I think, a company that is grounded in a secure mission to help schools educate and protect students from the risks of college life, these unexpected situations, is something that I see live out every day. And that's why we really founded GradGuard, right? It's really in the midst of 2008, 2009, where John was really looking at data that was coming from our professional associations, from the Cleary Center, from other reputable sources around these unexpected situations that come up. The student, and we all know them, right? Because we've had to respond to some of these situations. Some of these situations are very deeply personal to students that are living on campus. Um, but all of that shows up in the data as well, right? There's 2,000 fires that happen on a college campus every year. Every year I find that I'm having some sort of different conversation with the director of housing around a fire or a flood, something to that effect. And one of the things that they noticed is that there was these situations that housing administrators would find themselves in, where there'd be language in the housing application around the fact that the institution doesn't protect a student's personal belongings, but the students didn't read it. And then later down the road, a situation happens and it puts them in a difficult situation as an administrator, right? Because there's this financial cost that legally the university is not responsible for, but puts a student and their family potentially in a situation where they may have to make difficult decisions, right? And those situations happen, right? Where there's $70,000 in a flood or a fire that a student unintentionally causes because they light a candle or something like that. Um, and there are very limited options that an institution can take advantage of. And so where we really saw an opportunity was, is there a way that we can use insurance as a remedy, not as a solution, right? But as part of a comprehensive approach from institutions that includes education and other components. Can we use insurance as a remedy to help schools educate their students? And we found a lot of success with that. That kind of growth is only really possible with mission-aligned partners like StarRez, and with school partners that are equally invested in the same goal, which is getting students to graduation. We know that college is worth it. We know that the financial ROI is worth it for a lot of students and their families, but they have to get to that point. And so, as institutions are looking at different ways that they could support their students, GradGuard has really emerged as this indispensable, really, tool that they can use in order to support that educational mission. A lot of that comes from our emphasis on listening to our school partners, which you'll see is a recurring theme. I remember us having conversations with Cheryl Lloyd at the University of California system, who works in higher ed, but is also a parent and was seeing certain things that were happening at her son's college and university, and saw that there were gaps in the insurance products that were out there in the market. And so it was, and I use this as just one example. I'm sure Mo and Kim have others that they've seen in terms of like how we've been able to collaborate with institutions to meet a need in the market. But you know, one of the things that we found is that institutions will kind of tell you what it is that they need, and if you're tapped into the needs of schools, then that kind of directs what your roadmap is and what you should focus on. As we've thought about the product, and you'll see some information here, we've really constructed a product that is designed for students living on campus and college life in general. The deductible on their GradGuard Renters Insurance plan is $100 intentionally. And that's because we want students to be able to access it at the times that they need it. The coverage provides a protection for stolen or damaged properties. There aren't any sneaky sublimits on electronics coverage or gotchas that are written into the plan. It performs as it's designed because we know that students and families trust us. The campus, though, in terms of how we underwrite the campus, which is our product is different in the sense that we underwrite the campus as a bubble, is what we refer to it. But essentially, what that means is you don't need to let GradGuard know when students move between different spaces on campus, which is a pretty common occurrence. With other renters insurance policies, they need to specify down to the room where they live, and that could be an administrative burden. And we also know that, situations happen, and we don't want students to feel penalized when they need to use the coverage. And so we've built some of those features there as well. In addition to the fact that students can take GradGuard anywhere in the world, that personal property coverage component covers students if they're studying abroad and those kind of pieces. And so we've designed it in that kind of way. I know that that's kind of been part of the conversations that we've had with Kim and Mo as well, in terms of like situations that have happened on campus, and it was one of the primary reasons why, they decided to explore whether GradGuard is a good mutual like partnership that they should look at. Kim and Mo, I'm going to stop there. I'm not sure if you have any kind of anecdotal stories from when you were considering GradGuard and how these features played into your decision to consider whether or not a partnership was something that's worth exploring.
Thanks, Bima. So basically, I remember at the early years when I joined housing at the UM, it was an issue. Students will have different incidents, and we were looking for this solution that would help assist them, because here at the U, we really care about making sure the students feel supported, especially when something goes wrong, like damage to their belongings, from things like fires and water leaks. Those two are like the major problems that we usually have. Just this past year, we've had like 2 fires and several incidents involving water damage that I cannot really tell you how many, because I'm not in the facilities, section, but I do know about all, have an idea that they do happen. We, with over about 4,600 beds on campus, we've seen a good number of students. About just yesterday, I checked on the portal. We have almost half of the students now enrolled, with currently covered under GradGuard protection, and this number keeps growing over the years. And from what we can see, it's clear that students are taking steps to, protect themselves, because, these are like expensive things, being damaged and all. And I mean, we're here to help, help them bounce back when the unexpected happens.
In addition to everything that Mo just said, a couple of things that we found with GradGuard that we didn't know we were looking for was we have about 10,000 beds. And the Alberto talked about this, the moving from room to room. We do over 500 room moves a year. And so that was a huge benefit to not only us, but our students, that any room move that they have is it it just wherever they went, as long as they stayed on campus, then it recorded that for them. So it was one thing they didn't have to do, which is a nice little technicality that sometimes students would get caught up in with other insurance companies. Another thing that was really beneficial for us is our number one crime is bike theft. And we have seen a lot of students get covered and get support from GradGuard with that as well. And just the premiums, the deductibles, the ability to adjust. We have a wide range of students here, from highly affluent to students just trying to make it through college. And so the ability to adjust the range for what they needed, and their deductibles were still very reasonable. The options for students, I'm the kind of person who's always reading the fine print. And so for those of you who don't like to read fine print, I did enjoy that it really was built for the students. And I was trying to remember when we first started. I think we're pushing a decade. And I'm always amazed at what the students are getting covered. Things I would not have expected. And I hear that they are putting claims in and getting covered. So the support is really there. What I was reading and seeing, I think I've been impressed and surprised at how truly supportive GradGuard has been with our students. And so that was a huge benefit that we received after joining, just based on what we did see. And like Alberto said, there's no got yous at all for the students. And I think that's like the number one support piece that I see.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the things I've appreciated is just the ongoing dialogue that we have with our schools, right, around what their needs are and how we can adjust to them, as opposed to how we expect schools to adjust to us, right? We found a lot of success with that. One of the things that I did want to make an important distinction of is when students get GradGuard, this isn't a personal property coverage. There's a difference between the two. College renters insurance, or renters insurance as a general, has multiple components that's built within it. It's far more comprehensive. So personal property coverage is just that, right? It's the things that you bring into your residence hall. And it just covers those things from fire, theft. Definitely take a look at what the policies are, because policies are different there. But with GradGuard, students are getting basically more kinds of coverages, right? They're getting their personal property, they're getting personal liability, and that's really what motivates institutions, right? That if there's a student that causes a fire or flood, not only are they signing off on the refund policy, but they can be covered in those situations. And some of those bills can be pretty high. We have had several instances over the past couple of years where we paid over $100,000 to an institution directly, because the institution had a student, the student was covered, the student unintentionally caused the fire, and everything worked as designed. But that piece isn't present in all policies, and so it would just be something to take a look at. And then there's a third thing, which is called loss of use, and that protects a student if they have to move into like a hotel or something like that in the middle of the night. And that's something the students don't really think about, but it's something that's really important. As I mentioned before, it's been really great to just see the partnership that we've had with StarReds and how it's evolved. To give you some context, I think when I first started, we only had maybe around 40 schools that were integrated together. Now it's over several hundreds. And so what you find is that when you work with a partner like StarReds, and you listen to institutions and things like that, you find that there are certain things that work, right? Flexibility, that's something that Portal X certainly provides. The willingness to innovate, both on the part of institutions and the part of StarRes, to come up with new ways to meet certain demands. And then also, just being able to respond quickly to school needs and things like that. And so what's happening today is that there's over 1 million students that are going through their housing applications nationwide, and they're getting this educational moment where they now see the institution's policies around personal property and liability as they're applying for housing. Um, they get some educational information on what GradGuard is, what renters insurance is, what it's designed to cover, and they get the voluntary choice of deciding whether or not renters insurance is the right option for them. And as Mo mentioned, we can see participation rates of 50% or more in terms of students that are participating in the program, and 100% policy acknowledgement, which is what the institution really wants, right? To ensure that every student had an opportunity to say yes or no, and that they have an electronic record of that. I always say that, GradGuard is not in the policy or in the business of telling institutions how to manage their policies, but it is helpful for an institution to have that electronic record. And as I mentioned, right, there's different ways that we can go about that, but there are a lot of the core components of how we deliver this promise to institutions is the same. And it starts off with the housing agreement, right? This is a snapshot Portal X. Different institutions have different ways that they have structured their processes, of course. But at some point, there's some sort of an agreement between the institution and the student. And the students have to sign off on that. Um, Usually, at most of our institutions, the GradGuard component is directly afterwards. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because students are just going through, they're seeing that piece. If they're going through with their parents, for example, they may maybe pay a little bit more attention to that process. But right afterwards, usually there's some component that has the beginning of this educational component that we talked about, right? You can see an example here where it says, "Did you know that the school doesn't cover the cost of your belongings?" It's intentionally structured to be a more, um, how do I say, like a more kind of conversational approach to insurance. We know that this is the first time, in many cases, the students are encountering the topic of insurance in general, right? And so we want to figure out ways that we can make it digestible and for it to feel authentic to the institution as well. Um, it gives a couple of different examples, which you'll find there on how renters insurance can work and how it could be a benefit to them. And then it asks them to continue to the next page to indicate more and tell the institution what their preference is. Um, Basically, what's happening at that point is the students are being redirected to a GradGuard hosted page. There's a lot of things that we could do with this page in terms of like flexibility and how we could present these components. But here you basically have more information, right? You can see they can click learn how GradGuard protects students. It has more information on what the product looks like. It has information on what pricing looks like, what are the personal property, liability, and the deductibles that are preset for students. We try to give to ground these policies based on the institutional preference. So for institutions that decide that they want to offer this, we'll ask them like, hey, what kind of liability coverage is appropriate for institutions on your campus? And that may change. I actually think, Kim, we changed ours a couple of years ago, where I think the liability coverage was around 100,000, and then we increased it because of certain trends that you were saying or certain concerns that the institution had encountered. But yeah, we can change those pieces. The goal here is to provide education and provide flexibility. Students can go through that piece and they can decide whether they want to do it or not, right? And it's not the only time they can go ahead and make that decision. We can structure this kind of approach in different parts of the application process or their interactions within Portal X, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But what's essentially happening here is that if they decide that they want to get it, they're making a payment directly to GradGuard. And that's really a benefit to people like Mo, for example, because they don't have to collect the credit card information. You don't have to reconcile with student financial services. GradGuard is fully PCI compliant. We have all the credentials and to be able to take those payments ourselves. And so essentially what we're doing is we're providing an option to students on a technical level, because I know that we have some technical like power users that want to understand how it works. We're creating we're creating a custom field on the entry application table. And every time students go through, whatever decision that they make, we'll record a value onto that into that custom string so that the institution can have that electronic record. It's not the only electronic record they can use. As Mo mentioned, we do offer a what we refer to as partner portal, which is another like an electronic portal where you can see year-over-year trends and what's happening on campus as well. And then once they make their decision, then it's time to go back into whatever part of the application process it is, and then to continue on from there. At a high level, that's how it works. It's really easy. When I talk to institutions, even institutions now, that ask like, "Hey, how long does this take to set up?" And I tell them, "We can do this in like 20 minutes if you want." They don't believe me, but it is true. You could set it up in like 20 minutes. But yeah, it's designed to be simple. It's designed to use the functionality of Portal X and really empower institutions to figure out what's the best way that we can approach this in a way that that meets the goals of the institution. So, and as Mo mentioned, right, these are some of the results from the University of Miami. We do tend to see that participation goes up over time. Sometimes it fluctuates, and that's normal, right? It can be any number of factors why students would decide to keep it or whatever the case may be. Students can cancel their policies at any time if they decide that it's not right for them, or they feel like the risk isn't as prevalent as they originally thought or something like that. But I'll stop here and just kind of give Mo, I don't know if you had it. We have some of the data kind of here on the screen, but you have a lot of the more kind of like qualitative experiences around Miami and how that's affected and the conversations you've been having. So wanted to stop here and just kind of give you an opportunity to share a little bit about what you've seen from just interacting with students throughout the last 5 years. Oh, I think you're muted. I think you.
So basically, we have it built out in our terms and conditions of the housing agreement because we place that much value on making sure the students are protected while they're living on campus, because you just don't know, what the future holds, right? So we have a link, just like you mentioned, to the GradGuard website on our HRL site, where they will, we include within our vendors section that we partner closely with. And recently we have also, added a link on our housing application portal where current or prospective students can access GradGuard website just to browse through, when you're about to start school and come into apply for accommodation and you're going through what resources are out there for me. So it's one of those things that we put out there. Like when you get to the portal, you're able to go through GradGuard. Is embedded in also our application guide. It's there as well, the contacts and all. So when we do presentations to parents and families, we do also articulate the value added in ensuring that they consider this insurance options. It's you see that the number will go up when an incident happened, because the first question will be, oh, does this student have GradGuard and everything? And when they see the benefit of having that, other students, will join. And also it's and also I wanted to mention, I don't know if it's too early or it's okay to mention about talking to our leadership about GradGuard, right? from the start, when we've always, been able to offer personalized services to the students and their family. While we can't require anyone to buy coverage, we do strongly recommend, students consider it. So that's when you get that conversation from students about they come in after the application has closed, can I get contact to GradGuard? I really need to speak to them, this and that. And sometimes, it does fluctuate like the results show. I was looking at the portal just a few days back and, looking at all the total active renters protection and all that. So you see those numbers, they do fluctuate. So I mean, that said, I feel like just like you mentioned, it's so easy to get it set up. So, and it's no cost to us, right? So it's no cost to us. So it's pretty easy, embed it within the application process, get it updated while we're prepping to go live, and just few minutes or confirm that all our redirect links are working, and yeah, it's and we're good to go.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been interesting. I think especially as the University of Miami has evolved, and I've been on campus multiple times at this point, right? And the new construction that's being built, right? The concerns that are coming from just leadership, right? On how do we protect this multi-million-dollar asset that we have, and make sure that it lasts for a while, and mostly the students are getting the experiences that we're promising to them. And so that's certainly a piece of, or a piece of conversations that I find myself often in, not only in the context of how renters insurance could be a remedy within the housing world, but then also around mental health and the mental health challenges the students are encountering, and how we could protect students in that kind of way, through other products like tuition insurance and other pieces like that. You'll see the results here for CU Boulder. Very similar. I think every time I talk to Kim, it's almost kind of like a contest, I think, between you and I, Kim. You're trying to be like number one in terms of participation and things like that. But I think the goal, I think, really is how do we decrease some of that administrative burden? So it's one less thing for you to think about when some of these larger kind of incidents happen. So Kim, I don't know if you had any kind of thoughts in relation to just performance wise, or other pieces that have happened in between the last 5 years that have been kind of like either new developments or things that have helped you better kind of appreciate what the partnership that we have.
Well, I think I just want to reiterate that when you say 20 minutes, I think in the entire time that we've been together, it's been 20 minutes. Like the initial startup is a lot more, but annually, I think I spend 5 minutes on GradGuard. It is really that simple. I don't know that I believed that when we started, that how easy and simple it would be to have this partnership. So just to reiterate that, that I think it's super easy. Like Mo said, we have it as part of our application process. Our insurance is not required. It's strongly encouraged. So that's where I get a little competitive. And just makes it fun for us. A lot of schools like California require it, so their numbers are always really great. And I always want to make sure that our school is at the top of whatever list, right? So so ours is completely optional for our students. I think there's a couple of things that make my life super easy. I work with other vendors as well. And with GradGuard, the customer service is phenomenal. We literally do nothing with GradGuard. If someone calls, we put it in our application. It's in all of our communication all the way up till school starts. Like, hey, it's not too late if you forgot. You can still get it. All of that stuff, once you put it in, it's in always super easy. But when parents and families call us, we're like, you know what, just call a customer service line. They will completely help you. And we get no feedback, which is actually really great feedback. because we have a different vendor that when they call the customer service line, they're calling and screaming at me like after that call because the customer service line is not as helpful. And I have a freshman, and a lot of his friends are here. And I had a friend give me a call actually about a month ago and say there was a leak in the pipes. It leaked for 3 days. It ruined his textbooks, all of this stuff. Like, is the university going to pay for it? And I said, does he have GradGuard? And she said, no, what's GradGuard? And I was like, that's the insurance. It was in the application. She's like, well, we had him go through it. Did you do it? And she's talking to her kid. Did you do it? Did you do it? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, I can look it up. He did not have GradGuard. That day, they had GradGuard. I mean, obviously, it didn't cover this incident, but she was like, he's in an older building. This could happen again. They had GradGuard. And as she was going through it, she was still on the phone with me, and she was like, oh gosh, this is so easy. This is so great. Oh my goodness. Wow. I can't believe. And like, I was like, okay, awesome. Good.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a testament to, I think, anytime a university, including us, when you're vetting vendors and bringing them in, you want to make sure that they are a good representation of your university because they are not us. And so, if we have a company on our website and saying that we're promoting them, they have to give the service we are hoping to give because we get blamed regardless. So that's a huge piece, I think, that hasn't been mentioned yet, that I wanted to give a shout out for, that makes my life super easy, is that the ease of it, the lack of time I don't spend on GradGuard, and how wonderful their customer service is to our customers as well.
Thanks, Kim. I think one of the things that kind of stood out to me as you were talking was just this, how do I say this? Like, yeah, I look at that situation, right? And the fact that the student wasn't covered. And unfortunately, the student didn't have any other coverage. So I don't know how they were able to overcome that. It may have been that they went out of pocket for that. I look at that situation and I say that's still kind of a win, not necessarily because of the fact that it was easy for them to do it afterwards and stuff like that, but more so because um, the student made the choice. The student made the adult choice to say no, right? And there is still some education that comes with that. It may not necessarily be the lesson that they wanted to learn, right? But they learned something that day. And you hope that students don't encounter those situations. But I think, back to that student awareness piece, right? I think there's something to be said about the intentional construction of how you can construct a process like this to support education, right? To support students going through and learning something. And so, I'm curious to know from both of you, how has that awareness around the financial risk changed since implementing the program? What are the kinds of conversations that you're having now, and how are they maybe different from the kinds of conversations you had with students and parents before implementing the program?
So basically, I mean, the one good thing that GradGuard does is you guys are awesome about showing up during orientation to talk to families and answer questions. As Kim had mentioned, how easy it is even though we have it within our housing application, we don't even need to talk too much about it because, hey, the owners are here to address, all those questions that you have. Plus, the good thing is we don't have to get bombarded too much with those questions, through our customer service and everything. The number is right there at the website, talk to GradGuard directly. And also, like I had mentioned before, with the with our senior leadership, supporting GradGuard from the start, we've always, it was a no-brainer, it's within the application, it's no cost to us. It's an opt-in, opt-out, we wouldn't be able to enforce that on students because we're not even allowed to do that. So that's one of the great things about it for us. And it's also reduced the financial liability for us because sometimes, because you want to offer students the best services and, quality, making sure that their stay here is good. Sometimes we've had to pay for some of these damages, right? But when they have that, that's their go-to, it saves us money.
I think how it's changed for me is that I'm actually having conversations with students about renters insurance. Previously, we would just have a little blurb in our, 17-page contract about you're liable for everything, so you have to carry insurance. Now, because it's in our presentations to prospective students, it's in our application, it's in our communication prior to arrival, they're now hearing about renters insurance all the time and thinking about our campus, our on-campus population is 90% first-year students. So about 85% of them are going off campus next year. And that is when it's really, really crucial for them to have renters insurance. The majority of our fires and displaced students and significant damage actually happens off campus as opposed to on campus. So I think the biggest change that I have seen over time is that they are a little bit more aware of renters insurance in general and the need for it and why it's something that would be supportive to them as a student. And so I think that is a piece that for me I've seen grow over time, is just their awareness of it and how to take another piece of that learning that we do in higher ed of teaching them how to live and how to protect themselves further down the road, whether they choose GradGuard or not when they move off campus. It is discussions that we're having now that we weren't having before.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely requires an element of getting buy-in from different people, right? They're getting buy-in from different departments on campus and things like that. But one of the things that we do find is that other departments like facilities or student orientation or even at like admissions, right? I think when they find out that, oh, like this is something that our institution is offering, a lot of times they'll use that as a way to say, hey, this is one of the ways that we can increase the confidence that you have in making that decision, right? If you come to CU Boulder, like we've thought about this. This is one of the ways that we can convey our values to you, that we're thinking about you, not only in the context of providing you support the day that you get here, but providing you support through some of the more difficult challenges and even in certain cases, even after you withdraw, right? And that's where some of the tuition insurance fees that I talked a little bit about before comes into play. I do want to, there's a couple of other things that I wanted to make sure that we cover, and we want to make sure that we leave some time at the end for questions. But I did want to leave one more kind of like quick question for both of you, which is, what advice would you give to other colleges and universities that are considering whether or not implementing a program like this is the right fit? Like, what kind of questions should they be asking to determine if something like this is a good fit?
So for me, is usually when I mean, because I do set up most of the processes, is the ease and also the transitioning and the longevity of the application process, and by that I mean, we're setting this up this year. Next year, how are we gonna update the pages and all that with leadership? They're thinking about the cost. They're thinking about, what liability this will be, on the long run and everything. And it's super easy to add GradGuard to your housing application. First, when we had to have that conversation with legal, and that means we had to put this, blurb within our housing agreement, the terms and condition, which we did, strongly recommend. I remember Kim also, talking about that, strongly recommending that, but not forcing it on anyone, but, it's right there, adjusting the agreement. That was, I think that would be one of the things that took a while, because of course legal had to work through this. And when they were done with that, it's no cost to us. Sit through like 15-20 minutes meeting with GradGuard. And I love the fact that I don't even need to do much on the portal. It's just navigating to the 2 pages, putting the redirect, the parameters and everything, and we're good to go. It's just us saying, hey, we're going live on a certain day. Is everything fine with the pages, the redirection, and all that? And also creating a custom field. When you had mentioned that earlier, where we do save the data so we can report on it. So it's pretty low maintenance, I would call it, the cost part, I mentioned that, and also um you don't have to force it on students. They do realize they make that decision, themselves. And yeah, and also the part where we don't have to, the new thing that evolved over the years was creating the GradGuard portal where, we would go to get our numbers. We don't have to wait until we speak to our account manager at GradGuard to get those numbers. I remember we will have those meetings, with the briefings, and being able to see GradGuard evolve over the years has been such a breath of fresh air, because all we have to do is sign into the portal and you see your numbers, you see how it's growing. And also that's that. I mean, of course, I would advise get it. It helps on the long run. I had mentioned earlier about how it does saves us costs, because most of the time you choose to, I mean, the going back and forth about, oh, it's your liability, it's your fault, it's this. And at the end of the day, the university just chooses to pay for these things that we really, have no business, paying for. But here is the saving grace from GradGuard, where the student already have their insurance, and that's the first question: do you have this insurance? And moving forward, maybe if you have a roommate who doesn't have that and sees how things turn out when there's flood or there's a fire, or even on acts, something that's not your fault, accidental harm or different things like that, and seeing how you're covered, they go for it. We get those calls and then we direct them to GradGuard. And so it's, like I said, it's low maintenance. All you have to do is just put in the links into the university website, the portal where families can access and read through before they apply for housing. And also GradGuard coming on campus during family orientation period to educate students. So just taking that time off of our staff and just doing the work themselves.
Thank you. You mentioned a little bit about this concept of like evolution, and I wanted to share a little bit about that in the time that we have remaining here. We've been thinking a lot about that, about what is the next iteration, not necessarily the next iteration of GradGuard, but where should we focus some of our time and our energy. And we really started to really start to look at ourselves as this platform of protection, right? Like how can we be able to solve multiple challenges that an institution is facing, and ensure that our technology or our the services that we provide are in alignment with that. Um, and so that's really where we've been spending a lot of our energy as we look at the future, right? Jessica may have mentioned something about this in the past. This GradGuard component has been limited to application process types. And one of the things that we realized in conversations with schools was that, institutions wanted to give students a second chance to consider something like this at a time where it's a little bit closer to move-in, when they're a little bit more maybe committed might be the right word, to the institution and to the experience and things like that, and where it's becoming a little bit more real, right? They're about to move on in a couple of weeks. They're picking room selection time slots and things like that. And so we've really worked with STARS in order to give institutions an ability to provide that second chance to students. I mentioned a little bit like, hey, it takes 20 minutes to set up, the initial kind of integration. Probably takes 2 minutes to do this piece, right? Which is you're just exporting your JSON file with all the settings and putting it into when students are like the process work where students are moving in and things like that. And now students have that second option at that time where they're thinking about it a little bit more intentionally. And so if that's not something that, if you're a current GradGuard partner and you're curious about chatting about that, I would say feel free to reach out to your account manager on our side, and we're happy to have that conversation. But more broadly as well, we've been listening to the needs of our partner institutions, and really there's a couple of things that have come up as general themes that are now on the roadmap, right? This idea of accidental damage coverage in most insurance policies. This is not something that's covered. And this is like I spilled my coffee and it damaged my phone and things like that. That's currently not something that is within the policies that we have, and so but it is been identified as a need from our partner schools, and so we're looking into that and looking to roll that out here in the near future. Um, E-bikes is another area that has come up in focus groups and in conversations with our advisory board as well. And so that is a piece that we're working with our underwriters to include as a feature. And then the third one is just this idea around like event liability, right? There are multiple events that are happening on campus at all different times. Um, and there were similar conversations that are happening between the conference services folks and others around like, what is this conference group's responsibility to the physical spaces that we're renting out? It's not that much different from a physical space that you would rent out to a student, right? And so we're exploring that as well in terms of a solution. And we're also curious to know, what your experiences have been with these three areas in general too. So very similar to that example from the University of California, as we shape out these solutions, we're definitely open to ideas from the community as well. So we've got a couple minutes here. And speaking of community, wanted to kind of stop, see what questions are in the chat, if any, and ensure that we're being of service in that kind of way. So Jessica, I'm not sure if you've seen any questions that may be helpful for this group.
Yeah, thanks, Alberto. We
Mhm.
do have one question in the chat. So Andrew is asking if we would walk him through a scenario of a loss for a student. What is that process and how it involves the housing staff?
Okay. So I'll go through a couple different ones really quickly here. So if it's a personal property loss, the students have, we call it management account, but it's their portal for their policy. So they can give us a call if they want to start if they want to start a claim. They can initiate the process from there. And our it gets forwarded to the underwriter, and we typically respond within 24 to 48 hours there to initiate that process. If it's a liability claim, that can be initiated two ways, right? It can be initiated by the institution because you have an insurable interest in that all those physical spaces. So the cool part about that is that the institution can initiate the claim. We will work directly with the institution to get all the documentation and pieces in place. And if the underwriters determine that's a covered loss, then we would make that check out directly to the institution. That's a benefit for the institution because then, there's less of a likelihood of adversarial conversations that are happening between the student. We have had situations where we give out tens of thousands of dollars to a student because they are technically insured too. And then we leave it up to the student to pay the institution. So that's another benefit there as well. And then for the loss of use, that's really more so designed for let's say the institution has all of their spaces full, and there's a fire or something like that. Then this is a reimbursable coverage type, so the students can keep their receipts, and then we could reimburse them for the Uber, or like, hey, I don't have access to the dining hall because of my class schedule or something like that. It's really that disruption to the students' experience that we're trying to help remedy in that situation.
Thanks, Alberto.
Mhm.
All right, we have another one that I'll tackle. Is there any cost from Star Res when an institution decides to move forward with GradGuard? Great question. We get that one a lot. No, there is no cost to get the page added. So what we'll do is we'll get you an addendum, and once that's processed, we'll hand you back over to the GradGuard team to have that installed and built out with you.
Yeah, great.
Great
Um,
question.
I did see one more kind of here, and I'll address it here real quickly. Does GradGuard offer multi-policy packages for students, tuition and rental? That's a good question. We don't. That's just because of how insurance is regulated. These are products that need to be filed on a state-to-state basis at all 50 states. And there we have two different underwriters. But one of the things that we've have found a lot of success with is we'll have someone that's like working with us on a renter's insurance side, and they initiate a conversation with their student financial services colleagues, sometimes they'll call them the bursars, and they'll say, "Hey, we found some success with this. We're seeing a lot of the mental health challenges come up in the residence halls, and here are some examples. Is there a way, would you be open to having a conversation around how the tuition insurance product works?" Um, and yeah, we'll have a conversation around that, and that covers a student if they have to withdraw due to anxiety, a mental health condition, depression, a concussion, physical injury, the loss of a tuition payer if they were to get like fired from their job from part of a mass layoff or something like that. There are other risks that are not residence hall risks that we also think about, and that's one of the ways that we try to make sure the students get to graduation. So really good question. Thanks, Kat. Um,
Great. So we are, oh, sorry, Alberto.
no, I'm
Cut you
good.
off a little bit. So we are at time. And as we wrap up, just a huge thank you to our panelists, Alberto, Mo, and Kimberly, for sharing your insights. And thank you all for joining us today. Just a few reminders, the recording and resources will be sent to you in your inbox within the next couple of days. And if you'd like to learn more, visit hub.gradguard.com, email get@gradguard.com, or of course, your account manager at StarRez. And we hope to see you at our next webinar. Have a great day, everyone.